All right, so this is the prologue to my book, which it'll be on Amazon and Kindle here in a couple hours, maybe tomorrow morning. But so it'll officially be out. It's done. It's finished. I'm just gonna tidy up some things tonight with the way the pages are laid out and whatnot. But you'll be able to order it. So I'm just gonna dive right into it. This is a prologue from the first book in my series, Horizon Ascend. The first book is called Railborn. Part 1, The Iron Road. Prologue, The Reckoning. 580 California Street, San Francisco, October, Year 1. The city breathed below, a lung of light and shadow inhaling the Pacific dark, exhaling neon and sodium vapor into the fog that crept through the streets. From 23 stories above the mortal coil, Jack could see the geometry of it, the grid of downtown giving way to the organic tangle of the mission, the sudden void of the bay beyond, the bridges suspended like promises between worlds. The wind carried salt and exhaust, and the distant sound of foghorns, the perpetual music of a city that had grown wealthy on the fantasies of strangers. He did not want to be here. The tower offered him up. The tower offended him. Its postmodern arrogance, its wealth so concentrated it seemed to generate its own gravity. He belonged to the rails, to the open gondolas and rattling boxcars, to the democracy of steel and motion. Clayton had summoned, and Jack had learned that Clayton summons were not requests. The three reapers watched from their stone perches, and Clayton watched them back. They were architecturally whimsy, those statues, hooded, skeletal, bearing scales and skies and eternal granite silence, added by some designer's conceit when the tower rose in 1984. Jack had seen them from the street once, years ago, hitching through the city on his way north to the harvests of Washington. He had thought them grotesque then, out of place among the glass and steel. Now, standing on the parapet beside their maker, he understood them as anchors, witnesses, reminders that even in this age of silicon and light, old reckonings continued. "You brought them," Clayton said. He did not turn. His linen suit, color of old bone, of railroad dust, of the parchment maps that have guided empires, remained unwrinkled by the wind that scorched the parapet. "I wondered if you would." Jack looked at his companions. Cassie stood closest, her hand finding his without conscious decision, her theology student's eyes holding the perpetual dilation of the night hunter. She had been human when they met in Hammond, human through the long ride north, human when they found Sean dying beside the Minnesota tracks. Now she was something else. Not vampire, not yet, but marked by proximity, by knowledge, by the slow erosion of the boundaries that separated the living from the predatory. Sean stood apart, as he often did since his turning. The mechanic's son from Richmond, the rail riding companion who had fallen and been raised again through Jack's desperation or love, he was adjusting, still, to the mathematics of immortal existence, the counting of windows, the calculation of fall trajectories, the constant awareness of his own strength. He watched the city with the hunger of the newly turned, the hunger Jack remembered from Stockton, from the 14 hours of the gondola where Clayton had remade him, and Buster. Buster lay at Jack's feet, brindle cold catching the city glow, one ear torn from some long ago fight before Jack had found him, before Jack had changed him. The dog was more than dog now, less than vampire, something new that moved in the spaces between categories. He could smell danger before it arrived, could find water on desert waste, could sense the approach of other predators with senses sharpened by transformation. "I didn't have a choice," Jack said. "You made sure of that." Clayton turned. His eyes, pale as winter mornings, old as the railroad spikes that had bound a continent, held something that might have been recognition, or might have been appraisal. With Clayton, the two were often indistinguishable. "You always have a choice," Clayton said. "That's what makes you interesting. The others, the ones I turned before, the ones who served the Parliament or defied it or simply endured, they chose predictability, survival, power, revenge. But you," he smiled, and it was a terrible thing, full of teeth that had known 10,000 nights. "You chose love. Again and again when pragmatism would have served you better. You chose to turn Sean not because you needed an ally, but because you couldn't bear to watch him die." You chose to keep Cassie close, knowing what she would become, what she would witness, what she would forgive. You even chose to transform your dog, Jack. Your dog. Did you understand how that marks you? How that makes you anomalous? I understand that you're using this, Cassie said. Her voice was steady, but Jack could feel the tremor in her hand. That you created Jack knowing they would break your laws, knowing that he would form coven, knowing we would become this. She gestured to the four of them, the strange family they had become. What I don't understand is why. Clayton moved along the parapet for the moment. His form seemed to blur against the night, as if the boundary between flesh and shadow had grown thin with age. Because the law is breaking, he said. Not my law, the Parliament's. The ancient codes that have governed our kind since before the first steam engine, before the iron horse, before the rails that now carry you from border to border and sea to sea. He paused at the parapet's edge, looking down at the city that teemed with brief, burning lives. They think that they manage it, the Parliament. They believe that they control the disappearances, the tent city sweeps, the flow of bodies from border to brothel to unmarked grave. They call it balance. They call it sustainability. They tell themselves that without their management, the rogues would expose us all. The human cattle would rise up. The ancient war between our kind and theirs would resume. He turned, and his eyes caught that moonlight that filtered through the breaking fog, seemed to amplify it, to turn the parapet to a study in silver and shadow. But they are wrong. What they manage is not balance, it is appetite. Leviathan feeds where the rails meet the water, where the commerce of flesh moves in quantities too vast to be hidden, and the Parliament serves this hunger with bureaucratic precision. They do not protect humanity from us. They protect us from the humanity's full knowledge, because that knowledge would force change, would force accountability, would force us to become something other than predators. And you want change? Sean asked. His voice emerged rough, unpolished. He had been quiet since they ascended, processing, observing. You want accountability? I want evolution, Clayton said. I want vampires who can imagine something beyond the next feeding, the next century, the next acclamation of power. I won't. He paused for a moment, something flickering across his ancient face that might have been longing. I want family, not the covens of old, bound by blood and fear, and the constant jostling for dominance. I want chosen family, creative family, the kind that risked everything for love rather than survival. He looked at each of them in turn. Jack with his guilt and his hope, Cassie with her faith and her doubt, Sean with his loyalty and fear, Buster with his devotion, transformed but undimmed. You're anathema now, outlaw coven. The Parliament will send hunters, the rogue packs will test you, and eventually you will have to choose whether to serve the order that oppresses the chaos that devours. That's not a choice, Jack said. That's a death sentence either way. Then find the third way, Clayton said. That is why I chose you. Not because you would break the law, but because you would break it for reasons. Because you would look at a dying friend and choose damnation over propriety. Because you would turn a dog, for God's sake, because the bond between you mattered more than ancient prohibition. He moved to the parapet's edge, raised his arms, as if in invocation toward the three reapers that watched from their stone silence. There are others like you, others who have broken the first law, who hunt the hunters, who believe that our condition is not destiny but opportunity. You will meet them or you will die. That is the only prophecy I offer. He lowered his arms and was merely old again, merely pale, merely tired. But you're not ready. You ride east now, toward the rising sun in the old cities. There is a woman in El Paso who serves the Parliament even as she despises them. An instrument of their justice who has begun to question the justice of their instruments. She will teach you what I cannot, but she does not kill you first. And if she kills us, Cassie asked, then you were not what I believed. Clayton turned away to mystic them, his voice coming back soft as grape dirt. Jack, when you find her, remember that salvation and damnation wear the same face. The only difference is which direction you're walking. Walk carefully, walk together. And when the time comes to choose between what you are and what you love, he paused at the stairway door, looked back, once with eyes that held centuries of sorrow and calculation. choose love. It is the